Alright, from the patch notes, Osanna was looking like a skip, but after seeing what her golden rim buff is, she kinda seems busted, not gonna lie. So her S1 is pretty simple, 120% of damage and inflicts bleed for 2 turns. Her captain ability is 30% universal attack lead. Her passive, this is why I think she could be really good for bossing contents. At the start of a round, she gains 3 stacks of Phantom Pain, and if she's max skilled up, she gains 7 stacks. Each time enemies receive a debuff, Osanna gains 1 stack of Phantom Pain. At the start of her turn, inflicts 3 stacks of bleed on the enemy with the highest HP for 2 turns and ignores resist. If the target has bleed, instantly applies 1 turn's worth of bleed after Osanna actively attacks. Each stack of bleed damage will be applied. This is the reason why I think she's gonna be OP. Phantom Pain, attack plus 2%, maximum 100 stacks. She has the attack stats of Fatima, but Fatima doesn't work in PvE, whereas she can stack pretty easily in PvE. All you need is the enemies to gain debuffs and you're gonna have stacks for her. Her S3 has a 2-turn cooldown, inflicts bleed on one enemy for 3 turns, attacks the enemy 2 times, and damage is equal to 165% per hit. And after Ascension, it will absorb 60% of the AP. So I think already with her S3 and her massive attack stats, she's gonna be good for Forbiter. Her Divinate is, when casting her S3, she has a 100% chance of inflicting 2 stacks of bleed. And her Resonance, R2 is, after applying bleed damage, dispels 2 debuffs from each ally. R4 is, when at elemental advantage, damage plus 15%. And R6, at the start of her turn, inflicts 5 stacks of bleed on the enemy with the highest HP for 2 turns and ignores resist. Now if this is additional 5 stacks on top of the base 3 that she has, then her R6 is going to be a massive boost for her, because now you can stack the Phantom Pain buff even faster. But if it's just from 3 to 5 stacks, then you don't really need her R6. You can probably stop at just R0. Actually no, her R2 is pretty good. You can use this in Sonica, because Sonica is kinda annoying with all of the debuffs. So if you can apply bleed on Sonica, then she can cleanse the allies. Alright, a very important thing about Osanna, or the bleed effect in general, is that it cannot crit. That's number 1. And then number 2, if Osanna misses her attack, she will not proc the second part of her passive, which is this one. If the target has bleed, instantly applies 1 stack of 1 turn's worth of bleed damage. Look at the guy on the top right here. I'm gonna do true damage. Yeah, there we go. It's not gonna crit. The red damage right there is true damage, but it doesn't ignore defense. Another thing with bleed is that it does account for defense. So if you have defense break on the enemy, it's gonna do a lot more damage. So right now I have defense break and sear debuff. When I attack, it's gonna do 11,000. Bleed also increases its damage from sear debuff. So right now I'm only gonna apply defense break on this guy. Alright, so this time this guy only has defense break and no sear debuff. I'm gonna do a lot less damage, around 8,000 I think. Oh, it got resisted. That's new. So the second part of her passive can actually be resisted. That's weird. Defense break with no sear debuff. Now she's gonna do 8,000 damage. Alright, let's just do some mini showcase on her on Forbiter. This is definitely not gonna be like a optimal team or anything. Most of my units aren't built enough, and these are the only units that I have like level 60. They don't even have like good runes on them. Because again, I think she's gonna be pretty decent for Forbiter. Oh, there we go. 4.2 million. Ooh, wait, she's cooking. 2.8 million. And my runes are pretty shit on her. Like imagine if you have really good runes on her with a lot of speed. Because right now my runes are like the bottom of the barrel runes. I mean, she's doing pretty decent damage. I think the teams that you're going to be running her in is the Embla team. There we go, we're doing 6,000 or 60,000 poison damage. I think the teams that you're going to be running her in is Embla team, because Embla can apply a lot of poison, bleed stacks on the enemy. And there we go. We're only at 73 turns and we already have about 63 stacks on her. It's really easy to get her stacks because the debuffs are really easy to land. And yeah, she's already at 95 stacks and my team is pretty garbage. I don't even have Fushi for Embla. My Unas is like R0, doing absolutely nothing. Yeah, I think she's gonna be good for Forbiter, especially. For the Embla team, in Forbiter you can probably swap out Yunchuan for her. Let me just show you my relics on her. Like, look at this. Crit rate, attack, and attack with some absolutely trash substats. She has no crit damage, no attack, no speed, no skill ups, no divinate. And she still does like almost 3 million with this team. Look at that. 2.7. Not even optimal team for her. 3 million. And yeah, I think she's gonna be good. She could probably be useful for APAP as well, as a nuker. For Forbiter, I think she's very likely to be good. For Sonica, I don't know just yet. Maybe she could do damage in the form of just the bleed proccing, because in Sonica you can't really do any damage if you're not a multi-hitter, and she's not really a multi-hitter. Her S1 does like 1 hit, her S2 does 2 hits. So the only form of damage that she can really do is from her bleed stack proccing. And then in Dark Starlord, it's pretty tight. You probably will not be switching out Embla from Dark Starlord. If you are going to be running her, then you're probably going to be running her with the Embla team, because it's really difficult to swap out Embla in Dark Starlord due to her being AoE, right? And she gains a lot of AP as well. Whereas this Esper, she only gains attack and no speed, no AP gain. The only AP gain that she has is from Absorption from her S3, which only works in Forbiter. You don't really need her Resonance like at all. R2 is pretty nice to have, but if her R5 is only from 3 stacks to 5 stacks, then I think you can probably just stay at R0 or R2. That's about it. Ciao.